I feel like the fan base is generally all in on this thing. I do think it is there room for skepticism? Sure. But like if you're skeptical because you think Deebo's coming off a down season in which he went over 800 yards from scrimmage, averaged almost 9 yards per touch, he would have been Washington's second leading receiver last year.
Yeah.
Like, and that's in down season. And frankly, I think it was down not just for Deebo,
I think
but the whole
team
Niners team. Right.
And they started to get a lot of injuries and things like that happen. But he is a talent. And when you go out there and you get a talent, let's say somebody had a NASCAR, okay? And only thing was wrong with the car really was spark plug. But you know, the idiot that had it didn't understand that. So he sells it to you for very, very cheap. You take it to a reputable mechanic, they go, man, your spark plugs are just bad.
Sure.
You change them up, but you only paid him like a 5th round pick for it.
Right.
Okay. He goes out there, you put the spark plug in the thing, and boom, you get the effectiveness that it always has been. You don't give a damn about what happened before. You care about what's happening now. Well, and I think that's the way that this team is looking with him, with
Lattimore,
bam. I want to say Macklemore for some reason. Thinking about rapping in damn Seattle. But Lattimore, if they now get these guys in their system under Dan's tutelage and how he works with it, and you get the best out of them, it's home run. And if you don't, you didn't spend a lot for it. Dude, think about that.
That's the thing. Like in your car analogy, okay, well, maybe it cost you a new spark plug, but it didn't cost you a new car. Right. So I think there's nobody, maybe not nobody, but I think there's few people better positioned to know Deebo Samuel, the dude, and Deebo Samuel, the fit in the locker room than Adam Peters.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of this. The fact that they didn't have to rework the contract, he's going to get paid, but Washington not having to guarantee extra years, any of that, you're getting this dude pretty fired up. And you know, I think
I've seen a lot of interviews where he had been talking about Jaden during the season, where
you see Jaden's reaction.
He was excited. He's excited to come here. He already was talking about how good he was, how the kid was so cool and under control. Hell, you don't think when they went to him and said, we're going to trade you to Washington, he was like, all right. It wasn't like he tried to fight it.
Right.
You know, he's thrilled about it. And I think, you know, Toby and I on Friday, both of us were like, look, and a lot of callers, if Adam Peters decides to do it, we'll go with it. Because he seems to be hitting home runs when he tries stuff.
I think if you are skeptical because he's 29, I think that's a little silly. He's not 39, he's 29.
Yeah.
If you're skeptical because last year was a down year, he's 2 years removed. The 23 season, he had over 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns on a Niners team that lost in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I think his role changed fairly significantly when San Fran traded for Christian McCaffrey. And I think he was able to adapt with that. I think this past season, nothing really went well out there. And I don't believe he is causation nor correlation. I think it was just a good team had a down season. His numbers would have looked really good for what Washington had. For a receiver standpoint, only Terry McLaurin had more receiving yards than Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
From a skill position standpoint, Deebo Samuel would have been third in production from scrimmage. It would have been Terry, then B-Rob, then Deebo. The only dude, so Terry went for over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. He was the only dude on Washington that did that. B-Rob had 958 rushing yards. And then Jaden was actually the third most productive back from scrimmage. He had 891 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, Eckler missed a bunch of time and finished with 730 yards from scrimmage. I wonder what Eckler's numbers would have looked like with a full season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at this point with Eckler, you can't really expect full seasons. I think you expect 12, 13 games.
The concussion thing shows up.
It's scary, man.
And that gets scary because you don't know. And I always say what it was in the past was a spine. Someone said they had a spine injury. You couldn't do a damn thing about it. You had to figure something out. So I don't. So Now, when you have a concussion, let's be real. Even the people that talk about concussion, they don't know everything about a damn concussion.
Dude,
one guy gets it, he's back this next week. Other guy gets it, he's out for 8 weeks. You don't know. And the guy that's out for 8 weeks, his looked like it was a graze. The guy out for 1 week, you can see he got his tail walloped. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, so you don't know. So you cannot sit up there and once that starts and they have multiple ones, it's a problem.
I think. Okay, so the skepticism, age, I think it's too early, right? And I'll allow that. It's entirely possible Washington is never going to see 2021 Deebo when he went for almost 1,800 yards and 14 touchdowns. Like, you're probably not going to get that guy. He was 25.
You never know, though.
Sure, but like, if you get 23 Deebo, that's really good. Honestly, if you get the 2 years in between, he averages 830 yards from scrimmage and 5 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
You know how valuable that would have been in Washington's offense?
Mm-hmm.
I like some of it, I think, is also the scheme fit of all this. I want to be clear that I'm not knocking any of the players that Washington had last year because they were a top 10, top 5 offense in nearly every metric, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did a hell of a job. But, like, I don't think you have to check Pro Football Focus or call Mike Lombardi. Would you rather throw a tunnel screen to Olamide Zaccheaus or to Deebo Samuel?
I'm going with Deebo.
Yeah, like, he's all the stuff. I think the scheme fit.
I think the way this offense is ran.
Yeah, so much stuff at the line of scrimmage.
He fits what Cliff runs. And I think Zaccheaus can still be a part of this receiving core.
You know, I don't think getting rid of bringing Deebo in precludes any of Zaccheaus, Noah Brown, and De'Ami Brown are all free agents. I don't think Deebo's arrival necessarily means anyone's departing.
Yeah. I think what you did, you brought in a playmaker.
Yeah.
And that takes some pressure off of Terry or allows Terry to get more one-on-ones. Okay? And we already know what he does to people in one-on-one. He starts chomping at the bit.
There's so much underneath stuff that Washington didn't struggle with, but that could be better. And I think Deebo makes that stuff a lot better. And I'm fascinated to see kind of how this goes. And I think Washington fans should be absolutely fired up. We're going to open the phone lines up here in a few minutes. Now, the other skeptical point is people get concerned about the amount of time missed. Straight up games missed is really not that big of a deal with Deebo. He's missed 4 games over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
He played 15 games in 23, played 15 games in 24. Now, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, B. He also missed none of the playoff games, I would add. But I think because of Deebo Samuel's name in fantasy circles, because he can be such an electric fantasy player, and the fantasy world is obsessed with injury news week to week, right? And then day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And then Deebo's on the injury report a lot. He's limited. Oh, he didn't practice on Wednesday, whatever that is, right? And
we know a lot of people don't practice, and I think that's a thing that Dan does. He takes care of people. He gets them to the game. That's most important.
And it's a lot of different ailments with Deebo. Like, I'm not suggesting that he isn't on the injury report frequently, because he is, but he only missed 2 games last year. Mm-hmm. Like, if you polled people and asked them, like, how much time do you think Deebo missed last season? I think a lot of them would say, oh, he must have only played 10 games or something. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not as extreme as it sounds. And if you go through the game logs, it was kind of sporadic, his usage, but like the Niners were just sporadic last year. I don't equate it to Deebo. Week 2 against the Vikings, he went 8 for $110. And then he was inactive against the Rams. Week 4, 3 for 58. Then it's against
that's almost 20 a carry, 20 a touch.
Well, I'm not even talking about the rushing stuff. There's rushing yards.
I'm saying that's 20 per almost.
Right. Week 1, he has a touchdown. Week 2, he goes for $110. Then he misses the Rams game. You go Arizona, week 5, 1 catch for 11 yards. You're like, all right, well, maybe he's hurt there. The following week in Seattle, 3 catches, 102 yards, touchdown, another 15 yards on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's all over the place, but I don't know that it's directly attributable to him or the offense or just a team that was trying to figure it out. His next highest receiving total came week 16 against the Dolphins, where he went for 96 and another 25 on the ground.
Hey.
You know what it looks like to me?
Mm-hmm.
I think Terry McLaurin is such a skilled wide receiver. He runs great routes.
Mm-hmm.
He can high point a ball. He can win with his hands. Like he is at the wide receiver position. He is about as pure as it gets.
Yeah.
Deebo ain't that. This is a different dude.
Yeah.
And I think it's a different dude combined with Terry
He's
that
the
gives
guy
Cliff and Jaden a ton of options.
He's the guy that can do multiple things. He can play different things for you, but you got to be careful with, like I said the other day, I think it was you, was with you maybe on Thursday. Can't run him inside the tackles too many times.
Sure.
Because Deebo's mindset is Eddie George. You know what I'm saying? Bettis. But his body type is not that. So you got to be careful with him. Getting him on the edges and getting him one-on-one with some people, he has a distinct advantage in those situations. And you do that. But running him inside the tackles, nah. You don't want to do that too many times.
Yeah, man.
Now, if you could catch him on the third down where they spread out and they got one linebacker and they got only 4 people on the line and you spread him out, boom, and he gets one of those gaps, yes, you can try that. But to just slam him in there a lot of times, like 49ers began to do, because they needed to. They were in desperate situations when most of their running backs kept going down.
I think this one is really, really helpful to an offense that just – every offense, you just want more playmakers. You know what I mean? Like when you're on the field, you just want your quarterback to have as many options for guys that can make big plays throughout the year. And I think Deebo does that. I also think it was funny. Dan Quinn at the Combine was asked about like what he looks for in skill position players. And he talked about violence and running everything aggressively. And I just thought the way he was describing it just further cemented in my mind that I thought they were going to get Deebo.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when you talk violence about a wide receiver, I'd say Deebo or maybe A.J. Brown are like the first guys you think of, you know?
I got a text from a guy who played in the league. Okay. Right. And he said, man, Deebo would be a lot better in the Commander system. Pass-oriented offense. It would showcase his ability to be a playmaker and he can oppose his will with his physicality, bubble screens, speed sweeps. There's not a DB in the league that want to tackle him one-on-one. The 49 system was run first. This is pass first offense, and he's going to be able to do a lot. And I believe that. I think when the 49ers would run him because, he had the physicality, but he doesn't need to run the ball like that.
Mm-mm.
Run your damn running backs.
Well, they were keeping the other one healthy.
Get him in those one-on-one situations, a la Andy Reid.
Right.
Andy Reid, Pacheco, it runs hard. But what does he do with him a lot? Get him on the flats, get him out on the bubbles, get him out there where he got a one-on-one with the defensive back, and they don't want to deal with that. We watch defensive backs these days. They don't want to hit anymore.
I also think Deebo's really good against zone, and I think because of Jaden's ability to take off with his legs, Washington sees a lot of zone, and I think the element you need to me is you still need a speed guy, like a true deep threat, and maybe that's bringing Diami back. Maybe that's drafting. Maybe there's somebody else out there. But like, if you're seeing a bunch of zone and Deebo could just carve up those underneath spots, I do think they're going to bring Ertz back. That's just a gut. I don't know. Ertz wants to be back. Ertz and Cliff are very close. Clearly, things went well with Ertz and Jaden.
You know what? The reason you bring him back? Because he could play still.
Sure.
He balled last year.
I don't think that's that complicated.
Yeah, I don't care if he's cool with anybody, as long as he can play. But that's what I think.
If you have Ertz, who's just able to find those little soft slots, and then you have Deebo, who, when he gets the ball in his hands, DBs don't want to deal with that.
He turns up ready to go. He turns up angry.
I think the other part of it is Noah Brown, I think, really gave them an element that they loved. I think of this, Deebo is a dog-ass blocker.
Yeah.
And Dan Quinn, like that's what they want from their organization is that our biggest names are still doing all the little things right.
Hell yeah.
And Deebo brings you that, man. And enough. I mean, I think we've made it pretty clear. I think it's a great move. I think there's really low cost on this thing. For everybody that's going to call in and be like, well, what are they doing next? What are they doing next? They're not allowed to do anything until next week, dude.
Yeah.
Deebo was available because he asked for permission to make a trade. Now, maybe John Allen gets traded. We'll find that out, right? I think there are NFC North teams interested in John Allen, but I don't think it's going to net you much. Maybe you get your fifth back. Maybe it's John and a six. You get a fifth back, but I wouldn't be too wildly enthused about what the draft pick compensation is going to be.